Joe, welcome to the podcast.
No, thank you for having me.
This is awesome. It's been a little while since we've caught up.
It has.
We first met when you were at a clinic, PhysioFit, which turned into Podfit.
Yep.
Yeah. How many years have you now been a podiatrist for?
Almost 10. It'll be 10 next year.
10. Nice.
Yeah.
You've done a lot in that time.
I have. I like to think I'm just getting started, but I've done a bit.
How did you first get into what made you decide to go into podiatry?
Well, wanted to be a physio first. Didn't quite get a high enough score in year 12 at the time. Missed out by 0.3%. And I thought I'll get it in on a second round offer. Didn't. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, what am I going to do? Coincidentally, through that year, went to uni to do a health science course and was living with some physios. Didn't really like what they were studying. It was a lot of like neuroscience as opposed to like helping someone with a sporting injury. And I was like, maybe I don't really want to do that necessarily. Also at the time, had really bad shin splints. Couldn't run for almost 3 months. Couldn't walk for more than 12 minutes without my shins killing me. Went to a podiatrist, got some orthotics. Within 2 weeks, I was back running pain-free. And I was like, that was pretty cool. And it's kind of like physio, but it's like foot physio. And so, yeah, swapped over to podiatry the next year, and that was that.
Nice. If people don't know exactly like what a podiatrist like works with specifically, especially like knowing someone like you and not knowing what you guys do in Podfit, like a lot of what you work with a lot of athletes, like you help people a lot with things like improving their running and looking at their biomechanics. I didn't realize till I met you and Mel like the range of things that like podiatrists can actually like help with.
Correct, yes. So podiatrists, we deal with anything below the knee essentially. So foot, ankle, lower limb pathologies, whether that's sporting injuries like Achilles tendinopathy, plantar fasciopathy, shin pain, but also skin and nail stuff, ingrown toenails, minor procedures, surgeries, skin, callus, warts, skin infections, fungal stuff, and then also things like cortisone injections, ultrasounds we do as well. Anything foot, ankle, lower leg related, we do it all.
Yeah. Have you seen the rise of the run club culture come in and let's say probably help like the industry that you're in?
Absolutely, mate. There's a reason I do a lot of running content and work with a lot of running clubs because running is very in at the moment, which I love, being a runner myself. But yeah, I've definitely seen the rise. Running's very vogue at the moment. There's lots of run clubs popping up, and yeah, there's multiple shoes on the market too now, so it's all pretty exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's start and delve into that side of things. I think it's a good place where maybe a lot of people in the audience can like relate to. What are some of the like baseline things that people should be looking for when they're looking for like a running shoe, right?
So I think there are good running shoes in every brand, and if you are new to running, I suggest just sticking with a well-known brand. Asics, Brooks, New Balance, Nike, that kind of thing, right? Just stick with a well-known brand. 90% of their shoes will be good for you if you're a first-time runner. I would normally suggest going to a running store, the Athlete's Foot, Run DNA here, the running company, those type of stores that are specialty running shoe stores, and getting a fitting process to make sure you've got the right shoe for your foot type, your foot size, not going to get blisters, it's suitable for the activity you want to do and the type of running you want to do, will hold you in really good stead. Doesn't need to be a $300 pair of running shoes, doesn't need to be carbon plated, but just something that's a durable running shoe to get you going.
Now, I ran my first marathon last year.
Yep.
Very slowly.
Congrats.
For anyone who's
Mate,
listening.
It's a long time on feet, so it doesn't matter what time you run, it's a big achievement.
Look, I was running past the Torrens and I would never swim there. And halfway through that marathon, I was like, you know what? I'm contemplating just end it all here and just jumping in there. But in the lead up to doing the marathon, okay, let's give some context. I've run my whole life. I enjoy jogging. I wouldn't call myself a runner, right? And in the lead up, because running has become so popular, I had so many people who are now runners, in air quotes for anyone who's not watching the video, who were telling me, oh, you need to get my runners. And I had so many people give me advice. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I never even owned a pair of running shoes till I decided to run the marathon. And honestly, I felt really overwhelmed. Like I'm a bit old school. Like I don't like lifting straps for lifting. Like I just like raw dogging life. But when I started right, an idiot, I think, more like it. Because once I got the running shoes, I was like, fuck, where has this been all my life? Felt like I was running in clouds. But I got pretty overwhelmed with the amount of different advice that people were kind of sending through to me. Mm-hmm. Should people ever really go by what somebody else does, or should you really go get fitted? Because it's such an individual thing.
Yeah, I think I'd recommend people go get fitted, only because I see all the ones that don't work out. And so I'm a bit biased, right? Everyone that comes to see me either has some sort of pain, shoes not fitting properly, bruised, broken toenails, like something's not working for their shoes, right? So I'm a bit biased, but I do think it's worth going to get fit for a pair of shoes, because that pair of shoes is going to last you 12 months, maybe 18 months, depending how much you're running. So like it's worth doing that initial process to know you're going to be in good stead for the rest of that time.
Yeah. What are some of the things, like common things that people might get wrong with buying a running shoe? Like, is there not being like enough of a heel to like support? Is it, you getting shoes that are too like narrow and you've got like wider feet?
Yeah, all those things. So getting a shoe that's too narrow, maybe you've got a bit of a wider foot type, and they get rubbing on the sides of the feet, around bunion areas, little toe areas, maybe the front of the toes too. So shoe just not being big enough. People forget too that when you run for over say 15, 20 minutes, feet do swell a bit too. So the shoe that feels really good in the store when you're walking around is not going to feel the exact same 20 minutes into a 5K run. So something to think about, which is why we recommend if you are going to get fitted for a pair of shoes, go like towards the end of the day, maybe like 3 or 4 p.m. Foot will be a bit more swollen through then, just from like normal blood flow. And that's a better sort of understanding of how the foot's going to feel in a shoe during a run. So that'd be the first thing I'd look at. The others would be just getting a shoe that's not really built for the activity they want to do. Say for example, doing a 5K park run every Saturday is very different to training for a marathon. So you can get away with a lot more pair of shoes for the 5K run that maybe aren't suitable for a marathon too. So making sure we're in a shoe that has enough cushion, that's durable and going to do what we want to do. And that's right for your foot type too, in the sense that maybe you've got a bit of a flatter foot, need a bit of arch support, maybe you've got a really high arch and a bit more of a neutral shoe. So if you go into the opposite shoe with certain foot types, you're going to, one, just wear the shoe out really quick and just won't be as comfortable for you during that running. And then that puts people off running because like I bought this really expensive pair of shoes, my feet hurt, I don't want to run anymore, I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah. Okay, you gave lots of good value advice there. Main takeaway, go after 3, 4 p.m. I would have never thought about the swelling of the feet.
Yeah, and it's not like swelling, right?
Yeah,
it's
but
like
something that over time though...
going down there.
Yeah.
And what happens is during a longer run, say 20 minutes, is foot swells a bit. That tightens to the laces can be a bit too much for the forefoot, and it can give you like nerve irritation, get pins and needles, tingling, numbness, ball of foot pain, that kind of thing. What will normally happen is people need to stop, take the shoe off, maybe relace it, or like give it a bit of a breather, put the shoe back on, and they can run again. So if they don't know that's going to happen, and the shoes maybe, I've always bought a size 7, I'm definitely a size 7 in a running shoe, without really going to try it on, things like that can happen.
Okay, so yeah, your sizing would be different for the running activity.
Depending on the shoe too, and models, brands and models too have different sort of size fittings. So even though there might be a 7 in an Asics, won't feel the same as a 7 in New Balance. So it's good to try the one just to be safe.
Without calling anyone out, but that's exactly what I want you to do. What is a brand that maybe people associate with running that does not often do very good running shoes?
I would say Under Armour.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've got really good gym training shoes. Like training shoes, The Rock obviously has a lot to do with that. And they've got good shoes for like lifting and training. But I think as a pure running shoe, they're just not as good as other brands.
Yeah. Okay. This isn't very popular anymore, but there's still some people that do it. But like CrossFit was really popular 10 years ago, not so much anymore. But I guess lots of the small boutique gyms kind of do the same. But has there been a drop in people wearing things like nanos and metcons and things like that?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. We still work with a lot of CrossFitters who are obviously running their workouts, and we're seeing a big shift away from the nano type stuff for gym work because they're getting sore feet with the more high rock style running they're doing, and maybe some more like jumping kind of stuff as well. They're just finding the nanos and those sort of shoes aren't as comfortable, so they're moving to more of like a runner for just all gym training.
As somebody in the health and fitness industry, what were your thoughts on those specific kind of shoes? Were they good or not?
I liked them for lifting. Like I still like them for lifting. I think they're a good shoe for gym-based stuff. But again, depending on the workout, like you might get away with them for 200-meter runs, 4 times in an EMOM or something like that. But they're not good for doing 1K repeats for high reps training. So I think it just depends on what you're doing. I'd stick to more of a running shoe if running is the main focus of the workout.
Yeah. What are some of the injuries that you've seen people come in, like I guess more commonly now that people are training more for that high rock style or doing the run clubs?
Mm-hmm. I would say overuse injuries is the big one, and there's a range of that, right? It's like shin pain, plantar fasciopathy, Achilles pain, that kind of stuff, where they've had a big increase in load, whether that's like running load or gym training intensity, and those structures overloaded. Especially for someone who doesn't have a good maybe running or gym base before they start doing high rocks, it can be a bit of a high intensity HIIT sort of session, and they probably just don't have the capacity or the foundation first to do that.
So is that people just going straight too much into too much volume?
Yeah, it can be that, or like too much intensity. So they're doing like too many sessions in a week, and like the body just isn't getting the break, or the sessions are too long or too intense for what they're capable of. So like they may never have run 1K repeats, and they're doing a high rock sim where they're doing 8 of those in a session, plus the rower, plus the sled pushes, plus all the other stuff, the wall balls. So it can just be a lot for that person if they're not conditioned to that.
Yeah, for sure. What are some, I guess, movements that as a podiatrist you see people maybe mixing that they don't see how that would create like a lot of extra pressure on their calves or ankles, like in maybe something like a high rock sim or things like that, that you see people come in with problems with?
Yeah. So I think most of the movements in high rocks, depending on what the issue is you're having and the injury and where your strength and weaknesses are, can flare stuff up. Like a sled push, might not seem like a too big a movement, you're not going super fast, but you're putting a lot more strain through plantar fascia, Achilles and calf than you would, doing something else. Similar for wall balls, it might not seem like a Achilles exercise per se, it's more of a quad sort of hamstring up and down exercise, but if you've got an Achilles insertion issue and that constant going down to the bottom range, just tweaking it each time you do it and doing that multiple times through a session can be enough to irritate that Achilles tendon that maybe wasn't irritated before you started smashing with the wall.
This is a controversial question. What has brought more people in, CrossFit or high rocks training?
I would say CrossFit, only because it's been around for longer, right? And I've just seen, my career's almost been 10 years, and I've seen probably 6-7 years of CrossFit, and now 2 to 3 of high rocks. So
Okay.
it's just, give me another 4 or 5 years, and I'll let you know which is more.
You'll have a less bias, yeah.
Yes,
Less
but I feel like CrossFit, and you might be able to give some more context in this, obviously from a CrossFit background. I feel like people are trying to throw around a lot more weight in CrossFit, whereas high rocks, they're trying to get faster. So they don't necessarily go up in weights, they're just trying to do the same weight at a faster pace.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it's also, CrossFit, I don't know, like I guess I'm still trying to decide or like understand exactly the culture behind like where like run clubs and high rocks draws people. I think one of the issues with CrossFit is that it drew in a lot of people sometimes like came from net zero ability, and all of a sudden now they're getting upset because they can't do rebounding box jumps.
Yeah.
And they're like, why can't I snatch my body weight? And it's like, well, Dorothy, you've never done anything. You just got off the couch last week.
I had this conversation with a lady last week. She's been training at Revel, and they were doing Bulgarian split squats with weight.
Yeah.
She's almost 60, has arthritis badly in both knees, has never done a Bulgarian split squat. She's like, the trainer said I need to do 8 reps. I was like, why? She's like, I need to get stronger. I was like, can we pick something else? I'm like, you don't need to do a Bulgarian split squat with weight when you've got arthritis in your knee. Let's pick something that's like squat to a box, get up from a chair, something like that, something a bit more at your level. So I think, don't always need to do every exercise that's programmed for you. We can always modify.
Yeah, for sure. Are you surprised at how often people come in like not really... Because sometimes the issue isn't that they're going to like a bad gym per se. Sometimes the issue is like the client's never communicating that to even the trainer.
And that was actually part of it.
They're like, well, this is what you're supposed to do.
Did you tell the trainer your knee hurt? She was like, no. I was like, but you know your knee hurts because it hurts all the time.
Yeah.
So like, let them know. Otherwise, they're not going to know. They're going to think, oh, you just need to get a bit stronger and a bit more stable through the movement. So I think it's a two-way street when it comes to communication. I don't always think it's necessarily a bad trainer or a bad gym. But I think, open communication is good.
One of the common problems that I saw in the CrossFit space with people a lot of the time were plantar fasciitis issues. What are some of the common things that cause people to start having that to begin with? Is it wearing the wrong shoes at their job for like the last 20 years or like what is it?
There's a multitude of factors. It's normally not just one thing, but I would say the most common thing is a sharp increase in load. So whether it's at the start of the CrossFit or high rocks and they've just got into it and they're all of a sudden training 3 times a week and they haven't done that before and plantar fascia is like, what the fuck's going on? We're doing skipping, we're doing box jumps, we're doing runs, we're squatting under heavy weight, like we're just not used to it. And so that sharp increase in load is what caused the issue to start with. But it can be biomechanical too. So like flatter foot posture, feet roll in more, puts more strain through plantar fascia. Can be the more predisposed because of things like menopause, because of weight. Women over the age of 35, 40, menopausal, overweight are like a very common population of people that get plantar fasciopathy. So if you tick 3 or 4 of those boxes before you even start training, there's a high chance you're going to get some issue like that.
And why does that happen specifically with women in that hormonal stage?
A few reasons is, obviously women have hormonal changes throughout their life. They hit puberty most of the time sooner than boys do, 8 to 10 rather than 10 to 12 for boys. They have things like pregnancy, where there's a rapid weight gain, hormonal changes, and those hormonal changes give them what they call ligament laxity. So feet get looser.
Okay,
ligaments that were once quite taut and tight loosen out a bit. So foot becomes a bit wider. It doesn't grow, but it becomes a bit looser. Foot flattens out. Plantar fascia now that was like taut has to be a bit more like this. Take more load. Rapid weight gain. They might gain 15, 20 kilos over the space of 9 months. Obviously, quite intense. Feet are trying to work harder with less tight ligaments. The same sort of thing happens with menopause, where ligaments get loose again, feet flatten out, and hormonal changes actually change, I guess, the makeup of things like the plantar fascia and Achilles tendon. So things that would recover quite quickly when you were 30 don't recover quite as quickly as when you're 45 or 50. And this menopausal change can go on for 5, 10 years for some women. So that whole time they're trying to get through this kind of rehab journey where they're maybe not sleeping as well, maybe not eating the same. So there's a multitude of factors that come into play that, I guess, affect women and can play a role in why their plantar fascia getting irritated and not healing like it would 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's really valuable for, I know there's lots of ladies probably in that audience that are listening to this. And yeah, taking into consideration all the different, I guess, changes that the hormones can create to, their dietary habits that then obviously impact their body.
Yeah. And I guess like there's definitely more awareness around menopause now than there was 5, 10 years ago. But I think sometimes women don't know that there are these changes happening like pathologically in their tendon or the fascia where it's nothing they're doing per se. It's just like the tendon and stuff is changing. And so maybe you can't go and do the exact same thing that you thought you could do 5, 10 years ago. Like you have to build up to it gradually. And maybe that rehab process will take a bit longer than you used to. And keep that in mind. So like not feel down on yourself like, why can't I get as fit as I once was? Why can't I lose this weight as quick? Because your body is just like not moving as quickly as it used to. And that's okay. You can still do those things over a period of time. But I guess stop putting that pressure and that guilt on yourself.
I like that you bring this up because talking about CrossFit, I've gone back to it in the last 3 months. And the first week I was there, I did my calf. And then I redid it because I tried to just push through. And essentially, like, I know all the protocols I need to do to try and get it better. And, like, I did them really begrudgingly. Like, first I was like, I gotta stretch before I do the class and, like, warm up my muscles right. Then I started having to do, like, a certain amount of calf races every day. And then, like, there's some exercises that, like, I'm doing so begrudgingly. Then I had to do, like, depth jumps to, like, accustom my calves to be able to, like, do rebounding things. And, it probably took about 4 weeks of doing all these things, and not like pretty much just having to do them every day to now I can go back to doing double unders like I used to. But I had such a compromised fight between like where I'm at in life with versus what I wanted to do. And even knowing all the right things that I need to be doing, it took so much for me to just be like, okay, like I need to, if I want to do that, I need to do these things.
100%. And like you always still feel like you're the same inside. You're like, I feel pretty good. I can probably do that, but like I just probably can't right now.
Yeah.
And not without some like slow build up to it, right? But I'll give you a really good example of that. And I love that you brought that up because I think as personal trainers, previous CrossFitters, podiatrists, like we know all the stuff, right? We know what we should do, but then what we do for ourselves is very different. And we do the stuff we wouldn't tell our clients to do, right? So when 3 years ago I ran an ultra marathon, it was 70 Ks through the Highs and Trail, 2022.
Oh, wow.
And I did everything I told my clients not to do. My longest run before that leading up to was 14 Ks. So going from 14 Ks to 70 is a very big fucking jump.
Especially in the Highs and Trail.
100%. As like I hadn't done any trail running. It was all road running along the Esplanade, right? So very different terrains. But I just thought I can grit this one out just for the day. And like I did, right? I got through on the day, gritted it out. 13 hours and 19 minutes, gritted it out. But I was fucked for like 2 months. Every tendon in my lower body hurt. The tops of my feet, the bottom of my feet, all my toe tendons, my calves, my shins. I was cooked. Didn't run for 2 months. Like, couldn't take a running step for 2 months. I couldn't even attempt it because it hurt so much. So, like, yes, you can do things on the day and push through, but, like, what are the consequences after that?
The payback, for sure.
Yes.
I cannot imagine the pain you were in.
You rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a conversation I have with my clients now, having been through that. I'm like, look, I know what to do, and I still didn't do it. So I can appreciate that sometimes you don't want to do what you meant to do, but like here's the consequences. So we can get through a single day event or a couple of day multi-event, but like what are the consequences and the repercussions after that? How long do you want to be out for? How much damage do you want to do? How long do you want that rehab process to be? Let's build a really good foundation now and be smart so you're not like me waiting 2 months to be able to run a step again.
For sure. And I think that's the thing that maybe people often struggle to visualize, the payback that you're going to have. Like, I've seen this happen now to so many of my friends who, have been ex-athletes or were really into any one of those sports where their body eventually does burn out and then they've been taken away from the thing they love to do and they can't get back to it. And, for somebody that I know currently is it's probably been like 6 months that they've, just not been able to do any sort of like exercise, because your it will give you warnings in the lead up, but we push through, we ignore them.
Yeah. It's like the car engine lights, they come on before something happens.
Yes, for sure.
And we're like, I'll get to that, I'll book it in, and then something blows up and you're like, I can't believe that happened. It's like the light was on for 3 months.
Yeah, and then it becomes a more expensive mechanical thing. Before I ran the marathon last year, I also had not done an overly long run. But in my head, there was no doubt I was going to run a marathon. Like I was like, I will drag myself through that line.
And you can, right? Like you can grip through enough pain on a single or a couple of days, but it's like, at what cost?
And here's the thing, Joe. I have a 3-story house. I felt every joint in my body for about 3 weeks after that marathon, because my body I had not created the body that could actually go through that much distance.
Yes. So the body's quite amazing. You can get through a lot of stuff, but it also remembers what you did to it. And so got to keep that in mind.
For sure. Plantar fasciitis, another common issue that I see a lot of clients often struggle with is shin splints. Why do shin splints often happen, and what are some basic things that people can do to try and avoid them from occurring?
Mm-hmm. So shin splints, like plantar fasciitis, is normally multifactorial. The biggest thing is too much too soon load. So a really good example of this is like New Year's resolutions, January 1st coming up. If you're a bit like me over Christmas, New Year's, eat a bit too much, drink a bit too much, January 1st, you're like, right, I'm going to start exercising. Run 5Ks January 1st. January 2nd, I feel pretty good. 5Ks again. January 3rd, 5Ks again. January 4th, shin sore. Just too much load too quick. After not running 20Ks at all in December, I've done it in 4 days, So it's too much too soon. Another good example of this is like pre-season sport. Do nothing over the summer, go to pre-season, January footy, 2K time trial, lots of running first session, like my shins are cooked now. So again, that bone just hasn't had the load being put through it to adapt to the training or the load trying to put through it now. So that's probably the biggest one for shin pain. Other issues for that other factors can be tight calves. So those deeper calf muscles pull on the shin bone, so we don't have that range of motion through ankle when we try and run or jump. Other issues can be poor footwear. It's like the shoe doesn't have enough cushion or support to be able to stop the feet rolling and absorb the shock from the ground through the shins. And then flat foot posture, feet rolling. So feet just rolling a bit too much. If you kind of roll your foot under the table right now, you can feel the shin muscles tighten up, and that too can play a role too. So it's normally a few things, but the sharp increase in load too soon over a short amount of time is like the biggest one I see in the clinic as to why people come in. And I'll be like, show me a Strava, and they show me, I'm like, yeah, see this 4 days? I'm like, show me the last 3 months, we don't have that. So like, yeah, just too sharp an increase.
It's a good thing for Strava. You were probably able to check people's volume a bit more.
It's good, right? But it's also bad because I have clients, I'm like, yeah, you can't run for 2 weeks for this reason. And I see them on Strava and I'm like, hey, what the fuck?
You said.
You've got to stress it. Like,
yeah,
you can't
exactly.
Run. Yeah.
That's true. That's funny. What about like the muscles around the shin? Can they be too weak as well?
They can, yeah. So if you think about shin being, normally it's inside of shin, what we call medial shin pain, it's inside of the shin. Tib post tendon around there is a very strong muscle, helps us push off our toes and propel forward. If that's not strong, that muscle and tendon, we get shin pain. Same with tib and to the front shin muscle, if that's weak, doesn't help lift foot up. Again, other muscles, calves take over to help you get that. So all the muscles in the lower leg work together. If one's weaker, injured, not working well, the others will compensate, which can lead to shin pain.
Yeah. So would you, like tib braces and things like that, are they things that you recommend?
Definitely, yeah. Calf raises, tib raises, strengthening perineals on the outside of the ankle and the leg. Definitely, yeah. What
would be like, this is like a bit of a nerdy question, but what would be like a split between the amount of calf races people do versus tib braces? And the reason why I ask that is a calf race is like a really kind of like easy thing that you can kind of do. Like with tib races, like you might not have the tool to like load it up. Mm-hmm. It can be like a hard thing for people to kind of access. Like what would be that, one to the other that you'd recommend?
Yeah, if you're going to pick one, I would do calf raise, bigger bang for buck. We can do calf, Achilles, plantar fascia, ball of foot, toes, that kind of stuff, all with the same movement. And it's easier for most people to do it. Go to a wall, go to the kitchen bench, support yourself, do your calf raises. You can start seated, you can go to double, to single, to add weight. There's a few progressions and regressions there. Tib raises are harder. You don't always need a tool or a weight. You can go like back against the wall, heels out a bit from there and lifting up front. It's not going to be as weighted as putting a weight on there, but it will strengthen it up. Or we can get like the tib and little thing you put on your foot, get a kettlebell, that kind of thing to lift it up. But I would go ratio of, if you can do both, 3 times a week would be great, but I would go prioritise calf raise. Most people need that more for running and activity, and they do a tib raise, and throw in the tib raises a couple of times a week if you can.
Yeah, nice. And what about another like exercise selection specific question? The calf works differently when your leg is straight than when your knee's bent, correct?
Yeah.
Right. I can't think of the name, even though I've been doing them all the time because of my Achilles. The bent knee calf raise.
Yeah.
What's the value of that? You can probably explain it in fancier terms than I can. And why is it important for people to have like both of those?
Yeah, so obviously two parts of the calf. The first being the gastroc or the upper calf below the knee. The second being the soleus or the deeper calf around the Achilles. So if we have a straight knee, we're using more gastroc, so upper calf. If we have a bent knee, we're using more soleus. We need to be able to train both to run long distance because obviously we need both as the knee bends and straightens as we run, right? So we need strength in both areas. If we're really strong through the upper calf, we can get Achilles issues. We're not strong down there. And if we're really strong through lower Achilles and soleus, but not through upper calf, we can do things like pull calf, that kind of thing. So we need both areas, which is why we do straight leg and bent leg calf raises and that kind of thing. The soleus, I think it gets left out a lot, like the seated and bent knee stuff, because like it's harder to do. You might need a seated calf raise machine. You might need to bend and do the knee. It's like harder movement, right? But we need the soleus to be able to run. It takes normally 6 times body weight when we run. So if we don't have that strength down there, we overload Achilles, we overload plantar fascia, we overload the bulk of the calf, which can lead to injury.
Yeah, nice. I think you've dropped a lot of info there. We're going to take a quick little break. We'll come back and we'll keep chatting. People have started doing 5K races, the 10Ks, the half marathons, the marathons, which by the way, like they all sell out now. Like if you don't get yourself into like the, Sydney 2030 marathon yesterday, you're probably not doing it now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You've said you've done some ultramarathon races?
Yes, done one.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago. I've got 100K coming up next July though, so I'm training for that.
100K?
Yeah.
Joe, what's wrong?
Apparently a few mental demons.
Yeah. Fighting demons, brother. Okay, there's two kinds of people, obviously. The people who do a marathon and decide, you know what, I don't ever have to do it again. And people who go, how much further can I go? So how did that journey go like for you?
Well, I've just always thought that I can just I think I can run longer, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy running. Look, I don't enjoy every run. Not every run's enjoyable. Some of them are very painful, especially when you spend 13 hours with your own thoughts running a trail and everything's sore.
I can imagine.
But I did the ultra marathon, the 70K, about 3 years ago, and which was great. Enjoyed it. Finally got over the pain and the suffering, right? But I realised in my head that I was living off of that still, and I'd talk to clients and I work with a lot of runners, and I'd say I've done an ultra marathon, but really it was 3 years ago. And I was like, well, you're only as good as what you're doing currently or what you're about to do. So it's like, I probably should do another one. And I was like, well, I can't do a 70K again because I've done that. Let's do 100. It'd be cool to tick 100 off. It's like a big round number. It'd be cool to say I've done that. And so, yeah, training for that at the moment for next July.
Yeah, nice. And where's that going to be?
It's here, Ultra Adelaide.
Yeah.
So getting dropped off in Bridgewater, and we're finishing outside Adelaide Oval.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just running through the trails, wherever the markers are.
Yeah. What do you... Okay, I'm interested... This is going to go woo-woo and outside of podiatry, but I like when podcasts go deviate.
Yeah, let's do it.
Where did your thoughts... I find it interesting... Okay, I did a podcast earlier today with somebody who's like really into psychedelics, and we were chatting about how sometimes in life you don't feel good enough and you look for things to like fill you up, and then you realize that you want other people's validation, and then you realize that maybe you're like good enough as you are in life and you don't need to do all these other things, right? Now, I find it interesting anytime in life when we go to these edges where we get like little glimpses into like who we really are and what we really think. And I think when people do long runs, you do get like this exposure to that. Like you work through all those thoughts so much that you just get to like this really deep level. What did you get to when you were going deep in those runs?
Yeah, I found a clarity I would find hard to find outside of running that long. Because when you're by yourself for 13 hours running and it's only you, and you might see a person every 10Ks, but like it's few and far between, right? You've got a lot of time to think about your life and where you're currently at, why you're running this race, where you want to be. And so doing that race, funny story actually, I was like, wow, I need to break up with the girl I'm currently with.
Oh, wow.
And I was like I was like kind of mulling it over in my head. And I was like, right, I think that was enough time to ponder that over a 13-hour run. I was like, yeah, it's probably not working. And so like that was a big thought process for me. Hopefully not the same one for this one in July because I'm married now. So
a bit more complicated.
Hopefully still want to be with my wife by then. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I think, like you said, there's a lot of time to find yourself, for lack of a better term. And I feel like every time I do something hard like that, I'm not quite the same person when I finish. I've unlocked like a new part of me that I couldn't get without going through that pain and suffering.
Yeah, for sure. I think those things are available to everyone, and we live in a world where, you know, we're so addicted to the phone, and it's so easy. Like, I'll go to the shops and I'll put a YouTube video on to listen to something. Like, I give myself such little like alone thinking time, and every now and again I'll find myself like driving and think to myself like, I need to think, or like I need to come up with an idea. I don't need to take inspiration from someone. And I think those long runs are such a good place. Like, for, you know, sometimes that could have been, you know, 5 years worth of therapy that you just got, you know, through.
Saving a lot of time, a lot of money. I think with long distance running too, and the reason I like it is I find it's very similar to business. Like, it's long, it's hard, repetitive, it's boring. Like all the stuff in business, posting every day, reaching out to clients, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of the boring, repetitive stuff that sometimes like, I don't really want to do this, don't want to do this training run, but I know I've got to do it because I've got that bigger vision, that bigger goal that's coming up. If I don't stack the bricks now, I'm not going to be able to finish whatever it is coming up, right? And so I kind of like that it's similar to business in terms like you have to really put in the effort for a long period of time to like see the rewards from it. And the thing I like about running the most is no one can do it for you. With business, with social media, with other stuff, people can say, oh, you got lucky there, or you only got that because you had this happen. Whereas running, no one can run 100Ks for me. So you can't say, oh, you got lucky that you did that. It's like I put in a year's worth of training and thousands of kilometers to be able to do that thing. And yeah, people can't take that away from you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you kind of get access to, like, as you unlock these different things, right? Like, for some people it could be, they might be on the couch and they're looking at people doing a 5K run and they're like, oh, they're not runners, and they're looking at runners that way. Could be a runner who's never done a half marathon and they look at, oh, those people, I could never be like, and then you do it and you realize, oh, like I could do this, or could be a marathon. Or for me, looking at you as an ultra marathon runner, like, I think you've lost the plot, brother. But part of me is like, because I haven't unlocked that level yet, I'm like, I don't know what that feels like. I have an idea of what that might be like.
Yeah.
But who knows, you know, what really might happen to my body if I go past that, you know, 42K mark.
Yeah.
And I do think there is something to some of those things in life that, you know, no one can take away from you. You've got that forever, and it allows you to speak into different aspects of your life and use it as a reference point.
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, if I got through a 70K run, 13 hours by myself with, you know, minimal training and gritted it out and did it, what else can I do? What can I do in my relationship? What can I do in my business career? Like, it kind of removes some of the barriers you maybe had about what you can do physically, which then transcends other parts of your life.
Yeah, for sure. How have you found I always find this interesting with any kind of professional who's also got a business. Like, how do you divide your, not time, but how do you divide yourself as Joe the podiatrist versus Joe the businessman?
Sometimes tricky. It's obviously when I'm a podiatrist day to day, I spend about 30 hours a week client facing, and the rest of the time, you know, minimum 10 hours, but probably more close to 15 on the business side of things. And so it can be hard to separate yourself with the different hats. Like today, I've got to be the podiatrist versus the business owner. And sometimes too, especially when it comes to leading and growing a team, sometimes you have to put a different hat on, and that can be a bit of a change for the person in front of you to be like, hey, we actually need to sit down and talk about this because X, Y, Z isn't having to the standard that we do as a clinic. And so that can be really tricky. And as you know, sometimes it's hard to jump out of your own business and give it kind of a macro view, rather than being in it day to day where you're just like grinding, getting stuff done because things need to get done. To be able to step back and say, like, okay, where am I strategically going from here and what needs to be done from that kind of macro level? Yeah,
for sure. How did you find going from, what's been the biggest challenges that you've faced going from being a podiatrist to then stepping into that business owner role?
Definitely been a tough journey. I was Podfit's first employee, almost 10 years ago. And so going from first employee, having kind of done all the roles of the business, going from, you know, a new grad podiatrist to senior podiatrist to a mentor of other podiatrists to business owner after a few years to now, you know, growing and leading a team and, you know, further qualification and stuff, it has been tricky. I found that I've had to grow personally. And a good example of this is like, we've got a Christmas show coming up this weekend. I can't get fucked up at the Christmas show anymore because like, I'm the example now. Whereas back in the day, I'd go like hard. And that was okay. That was acceptable because I was just an employee and I was a new grad and that kind of thing. And so you have to change the way you act. You are a reflection of the business, and how you conduct yourself is important. And you also have to have a lot of harder conversation with the team, sometimes about performance, sometimes about client care, other things like that. And so, you know, you have that different hat that you wear. And it's funny because I've worked on every role in the business and I was the first ever employee, I have that perspective of what it felt like. It was like my business partner Mel giving me those talks when I was younger and like, you know, you have to come to work after the Christmas party, you can't be hungover and stay home. You have to do your plans after every appointment. You have to call your clients. And so now working on those things with the team, I can understand kind of where they're at because I have that perspective of being the employee, but also know where they need to be if they want to progress further in their career as well, because I've kind of gone down that path too.
Yeah, for sure. It is such a thing that like almost no one prepares you for. Like and especially like I think in business ownership, you do often have to have several different hats that you have to wear, and some of those hats, some of them are hard and you like wearing them, and some of them are hard and you don't like wearing them. Like when I had the gyms, I hated the employee management side of things. It's been like a big motivation for me to have like an online business that I can manage myself. I hated having to have, and I made the mistake of employing all my best friends at the time, which was like super hard conversations to like fire people when you're like, you slept with too many clients, brother. Like I can't keep you on.
Worth it.
Like
doing one class a week to set the clients.
Just I had to have those similar conversations multiple times, and they were hard things because for so long, you'd be like, I've been good at marketing most of my life, so I'm like, I can get more clients, I guess. Instead of realizing, I should probably like let go of that person.
The root cause.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's good to hear that those struggles are not things that I felt, but they're very shared by lots of people.
It's the hardest part of the job, and I talk to a lot of business owners too as clients, and people management is the hardest thing. Like I really like being a podiatrist, so the client-facing stuff, I find it quite easy, I enjoy it. But having those, I guess, tougher conversations, and sometimes you're like, this is such a stupid conversation we're having. Like, why am I sitting here talking to you about why you can't watch the NHL Ice Hockey Grand Final with your feet in your desk while we're all working with clients? Like, why am I having this conversation like we're both adults? But you've got to have it sometimes. And so, yeah, it's tricky and something I'm definitely always having to work on.
For sure. Going back to podiatry and let's say foot health, what is a good amount of load, like volume, that people should slowly increase when they're looking at, let's say, joining a run club or like increasing their running ability? Like, is there a certain amount that you would say, only increase like 5 kilometers a week or 3 kilometers a week, something like that?
Look, we normally aim for the 10% rule in terms of increasing the load in running load distance. I think tricky when you're just starting, 10% might be too much, and tricky when you're like an ultra marathon runner doing 150 k's a week, because that 10% extra 15 k's a week might be a bit too much for you too. But I think it's a nice sweet spot for someone who's like in the middle, right? They've got a decent fitness base, maybe they've played some sport, gone to the gym, they can run a bit, but they're not like a runner per se. What I normally suggest is starting off with like run-walk interval, so running for 30 seconds, walk for 30 seconds, run for 30 seconds, walk for 30 seconds, and do that for maybe 10 minutes. Do that for a day, see how you feel, go from there. And then over the next few weeks, increase that run-walk interval, so maybe do a minute on, minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, over kind of a 6 to 8 week period. I think that's a very safe way to start running, to make sure like you're just not going too hard in the first few sessions. And then looking at intervals too for the days you run. So like maybe you're running on Monday, having a break Tuesday, running again Wednesday, having a break Thursday, so on. And that kind of 24 hours break in between gives the muscles, bones, tendons enough time to adapt to the new running load. And if you can do that and chuck a good pair of shoes on, you can prevent 90% of running related injuries when you first start.
Yeah. People might not realize it, but when you're doing any kind of activity, like you have the loading of your muscles, your tendons, your bones. What are some things that people can do to be training their tendons, ligaments, and joints alongside, let's say, like standard, like squats and things like that?
Yeah, I think, look, basics work. I think if you incorporate basic strength training with your running, you're in much better stead than someone who just runs. So biggest bang for buck without needing equipment, calf raises, squatting from a chair or to a box, that kind of stuff. Just getting some load through the tendons and joints in the similar movements you'll be doing when you run. So we think about running is a series of like single leg hops. So being able to do a calf raise, a series of single leg hops, being able to do maybe a squat or a single leg squat, that kind of stuff, maybe just to a box if it's safer for you. But trying to mimic those movements that you do with running with your body weight stuff.
Yeah. If somebody could only do single leg or could only do, let's say, hypothetically, one single leg or a double leg exercise, what would you think would be better? Would it be better for people, if they're runners, to focus on lunges or squatting?
Tricky. I would say for running, I would go squatting for most people over lunging. One, because I think it's a bit of an easier movement, and I think you can load it up more in terms of weight than you can like a lunge is harder. I think a lunge is harder too if you're someone who's got maybe some previous ankle injuries, that kind of stuff, bit of instability where it's harder to balance on that single foot than it is for the squat. So I would go squat if you can, but ideally try and do both.
Yeah. Do you know much of, I think, what's his name? Patrick Wilson, knees over toes guy?
I've seen his Instagram page.
Okay, yeah. So what do you think about some of the things that he kind of talks about? So he's really big on doing like the knees over toe, like really super deep, like knees over toe lunges. He's big on like backwards sled walking. He's big on tip races. Should people like be incorporating those things into their training, or just more traditional strength training does the work?
Yeah, I think like I like his stuff, right? I think it's valuable. I like his Instagram page, but I think for most people, just the basics. Like you probably don't need to do knee over toe, single leg pistol squat to be able to run a 5K. Like you're not really doing that movement when you run anyway. So I see a lot of people coming in, they're like, I've been doing this exercise off Instagram, off TikTok, and I'm like, why? Like, I want to see if I can do it. I'm like, cool, but now you've blown out your calf or your knee. So I'm like, what was the relevance there? I think the exercise you do should mimic the running or the exercise you're trying to get better at, right? The activity. And so probably don't need to do a knee over toe in terms of like a squat or a single leg pistol squat. Probably don't need to walk backwards on a treadmill because you're running forwards. Probably don't need to do tip raises if you don't have the equipment. I think the basics work. Squat, calf raises, lunges, some single leg hopping, that kind of stuff will hold you in good stead.
What's some of the strangest things that you've seen people start to incorporate since the rise of Instagram and that dictating people's exercise choices?
There's a couple. The first that comes to mind is like the pistol squat, where like just trying to get up off the ground and then like jump over something. I'm like, you can't even squat normally with two legs. Why are you trying to single leg pistol squat? Like you don't need to do that movement. So like that's a big one. And then like anything that's kind of mobility related, where it's like I'm trying to jump off a box and land and jump onto another box. I'm like, you can't even do a normal jump. Let's just not do that. Or like trying to use a broom and get over a broom. And I'm like, we don't need to do those movements. So I think, yeah, it's good. It's like, it's fun to test things. I'm like, can I do that thing? But if you're trying to get better at something that's causing you pain, I'd probably think about why we're trying to get better at movement and how does that transfer to the activity you want to do.
For sure. I remember 3 years ago being at Dermets and Revo, or one of the two. And like, I understand that there's a time when you might want to do some backwards walking on a treadmill. That time's pretty it's pretty low in the grand scheme of things. And the amount of people that I saw walking sideways backwards on treadmills, I just was like, oh, part of me was like, should I say something? I'm like, no, don't say anything wrong.
Yeah, I just think like, what's the activity you're trying to do? What benefit does it have? And look, trying new things is good, bit of variety is good. But again, if you're not going to run backwards, probably don't need, like there's better things we can focus on.
For sure. Brother, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I think there's been some really good tips that you've given everyone. If people want to know more about you or Podfit, how can they find out more about you?
So our clinic's called Podfit Podiatry, with clinics in Glenelg, Findon, Modbury, open 6 days a week, late night appointments available on weekdays too. Happy to see you for any foot, ankle, lower limb concerns, skin, nail stuff as well, sporting injuries, that type of thing. Probably most active on Instagram though. So my name, Joe Keain, Joekeain, Podiatrist, is my handle on Instagram, and TikTok too. So yeah, you can find me there. Happy to chat through Instagram. Have any questions, send them through.
Awesome. I'll make sure all those links are at the bottom of the YouTube and Spotify if you want to check them out. And thank you so much for coming on today, brother.
Mate, thank you.